So I took this picture of the sun. It's a 13-panel mosaic, and then I posted it over on my channel, and I also posted it around in socials, and in different places people were asking me how I put that together. So I'd like to actually show you, because I spent a good amount of time trying to sort this out, and maybe this will help you. So coming up next, here's how I did the merge of these 13 panels to create this mosaic. My name is Doug, and this is AstroAF. All right, down here in the computer. So what I want to do is to look at two high-level areas. One is going to be on the pre-processing side. So I've already captured. We're not going to go through that. So I captured in SharpCap. I use SharpCap's cool tool for solar mosaics. They have a lunar mosaic tool as well that I haven't tried yet. And the feature worked out really good. I was quite pleased with it. It allowed me flexibility over aligning the panels based on the number of pixels that I wanted for overlapping, and ensure that I had some space around the solar disk. So anyway, it worked out really well. I was able to choose filters and things. In this case, I was using my Solar Scout scope, so there was only a UV-IR cut filter that I had in that train, so it wasn't. But I am using a mono camera, but it wasn't a multi-filter. But the SharpCap software does support that, and it also supports an OSC camera if that's what you're using. So anyway, if you're interested in that, I definitely suggest checking out SharpCap and the mosaic tool that is built into it. So on the pre-processing side, I have historically used AutoStacker, and I've always liked AutoStacker, but it certainly takes a very long time, especially with really large SURF files. And in this case, with 5,000 frames, the SURF files are quite hefty. And so I've been working with AstroSurface, and I really like AstroSurface, and I definitely recommend you check it out. The stacking time is exponentially faster. I mean, really, really fast, and especially compared to AutoStacker. AutoStacker is hours versus minutes in AstroSurface. So something about AstroSurface, it does a really fantastic job of doing the stacking. So I'll look at that real quick, and I'll run through the stacking process. Then I go to ImPPG, and I do my sharpening and normalization. And so I'll show you that. And once I'm done there, I'm done on the mini PC, because I'm using the Windows software. I transfer those files over to my Mac, and then I do the pre-processing on the Mac to go through a series of steps in Pixinsight to prep. And then I'll send out to Photoshop at that point to basically load the stack and merge the files, get alignment, and create the full mosaic image for me. And so I want to show you all of that. So real quick, we'll head on over into AstroSurface, and that's where I'll start. Okay, here in AstroSurface, we'll just do a quick run through. Basically, I am going to open one of my SURF files, and I've got, these are my raws here. And so I'll just grab my first one and open it. And so it shows a preview of the first frame, and it gives me automatically the setup here, which I'm going to use to register. Walking through this, default top-down is fine. I'm not changing anything. I am using a monochrome camera. Here's where you'd want to choose your Bayesian pattern if you're OSC. Nothing else to change here, and I just click on register. That brings up the analysis and registration UI here, and this is arranged in a series of steps. We'll just go through those one at a time. So this is a planet disk, and I can run detection on this, but I prefer to select an ROI. And then let's come down here and select a feature that I think would be good, and we can just select an ROI, and that's going to give this some points to register on. If it doesn't work well, you might try a different ROI in another place and see if it does better for you. And then once you have your ROI, Analyze becomes available. And I'm not changing anything here. I'm using the algorithm C here, which is for disk or surfaces, and click Analyze. Now this will take just, I don't know, about 2 or 3 minutes. All right, that's done, and it pops up my quality graph here, and I can see, so this looks really good. And I'm just going to go for the best 50% out of the 5,000 frames I have in this panel. So 50 is already selected. Click OK. All right, and we can now move on to step 4. I choose median and global here, and then I want to output my images sizes the same size as video. I don't want it to do any cropping. The resize here is 100%. I didn't touch that. And if you are using an OSC, you may want to align your RGB channels at this point. I am not. And then I would click on stack. Now that stack will take, I don't know, I think it took about, 4 or 5 minutes on my data set. Literally like exponentially faster than AutoStacker. This is what wins it for me here in AstroSurface. So at this point, I'm going to exit because I don't need to do that, because what it would do is actually create the file for me. We'll just go over to ImPPG now. So here I can go ahead and load one of my images. What that did is that when I ran all the stacks here of my light frames, it put them into an aligned directory. And then I'm just going to bring one image in, and note here that there's a selection area, and you can change your selection. I'd like to have a look at different types of detail here in the solar surface. Note that this is just a little bit sharper with the default settings than the surrounding area, and I can illustrate that by really going overboard here so that you can see it better. But if I change the settings here, so now I'm applying sharpening with the sigma control, okay, and then I can prevent ringing, and then down here for masking, I can further define sigma and the amount, and keep an eye on that selection. Then I can go look at other areas, and you can see how those change. So you can preview different areas. You can see what this prominence looks like up here. This is very aggressive in my opinion that I'm showing you right now. I'm really just showing you this for illustration purposes because I'm going to do more sharpening in later steps. So, but for your workflow, depending on how you use it, maybe this is where you want to be. You're not going to do much as far as sharpening is concerned later, then you may want to push it harder here. The entire session of 13 panels was captured at 108 frames per second. I think I was like 11 or 12 minutes or something like that for 60,000 frames for all 13 panels. I didn't do the math on that, but somewhere in that neighborhood. So they are very similar. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to go to settings and normalize brightness levels here. And I want to enable normalization here. And I didn't change these. I just did 0 and 100. Okay, I'm going to cancel that because what I want to show you now is what I did is I then after I got everything the way I wanted to add normalization, I saved my process settings. What those are is XML file. And if I go to that file here, these are all my settings that I just set up. So my sigma value, for that, and this may not be good settings for you, but just so you know. So it creates this XML file, and now what I can do is I can go to batch processing, and I can add all my files. So these are all the files that are aligned. Select them all and open them. Okay, and then I can load my settings file here and select it. That's an XML file. All right, I can set my output folder here. So I just browse and select a folder, and then the output format. In this case, I'm going TIFF 16-bit. Now, when I click on Start Processing, it will apply all of the sharpening, sigma, this deconvolution work here, along with my normalization. So it's going to normalize all of my panels at once, and it's going to output to my normalized directory. I will cancel because I've already done that. So at that point, I've got everything in my normalized directory, and I'm going to now take it over to my Mac where I'm going to do my process in Pixinsight. So let me get set up over there and I'll be right back. Okay, over here in Pixinsight, I've got my project loaded, and these are all the images that came from the ImPPG export, and I copied them over to my Mac from the mini PC. Now these are all complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image down here and I'm going to undo everything. Okay, and then I'm going to create a clone of that image so that I can show you the process on an unedited image. And then here I'm going to redo all on that one. So here on this image, I am going to perform some steps, and I have my process icons here. I worked it out and I saved off my icons for my project so that I could come through and reproduce this later as an icon set, you know, with another session of solar. And so this image here, one of the first things that I want to do is go ahead and apply a little bit of noise reduction. And I'm using a noise exterminator and default settings, and I'm just going to drop that on there. And this is just like a preliminary cleanup. The data is pretty good and not really noisy, but this helps. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to mask this because I want to apply these settings to the solar surface and not to space. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull this out and create a clone of it. And I'm going to work with this clone to create a mask. Then I'm going to use ACDNR and create a lightness mask here, and we'll preview it and look at it. And then we're going to adjust this. I want to get the prominences, and then I want to tailor this so the background. So if I go too far, see how I'm pushing the limb out? I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to find this happy medium here. It's just about right. I'm just tweaking it somewhere right in that area. I'm getting close. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And so I'm done with ACDNR now, and close the preview. Now I've got my mask, but I'm not done with my mask yet. I want to apply a convolution to it. And so my settings on this are 6.3. And I don't think I changed anything else. And I'm just going to drop that on there. And that just blurred those edges for me slightly. Okay, so now I've got a mask and I'm going to apply the mask. So I'll just drop it on to the image. Now I'm done with my mask. I save them in case I need to go back. Now red is protect. So I'm going to go ahead and invert mask. All right, now I'll be editing the solar surface. Okay, and I can leave that there. I can hide the mask or whatever. I'm just going to leave it. So the first thing I want to do then is an unsharp. And on this, I've got a standard deviation of 8.5, and I will drop that on there. And so that gave me the sharpening that I was looking for. And I certainly could have done more. And I think maybe in retrospect, I might have done a little bit heavier in ImPPG. I was being a little conservative, but that's okay. And then I did a little bit of a histogram stretch, and this was just a little bit further normalization on stuff, and I darkened it just a little bit. And then I went into curve transformation, and I just worked the background a little bit. This was just tweaking to taste. So I applied the curves. And that, again, that brightened it up a little bit from that point. And then I did a crop. And I applied the same processing, and that's fine. I'm going to lose that mask. And now I've got an image that I'm ready to take over to Photoshop. And so I just repeated exactly the same thing 13 times. And then I saved these off. There's a cool script by SETI Astro here, which is the Save All Views script. And that pulls up. You can load all your images at, all your views here. Choose your output folder and save all. You can save them as TIFF or whatever format you want. That saves you from having to do, each individual one, which is a pain. Cool scripts. Lots of cool scripts from Frank. He does a good job. All right, and then I'm done with that. And now we'll head over to Photoshop, and I'll show you that process and how we put all this together. All right, over here in Photoshop, we just have a few steps, and I'll show you. So first thing we want to do is go to File, Scripts, and I want to load files into Stack. And then I'm going to select the files that I just processed out of Pixinsight, and we'll select all of those and open. I'm not selecting anything here. Attempt to automatically align, not yet. And create smart object, nope. And we'll click OK. So this is going to load in all of the files stacked on top of each other. All right, so that loaded. Now I want to go ahead and select all my layers here. And I want to go, let's see, it's in the edit menu, I believe. And I want to auto align layers. And we're going to just choose auto. I think geometric distortion is working well for me, so I have it selected. You can certainly play with it and see. I don't see any reason for vignette removal, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Okay, now we have our first kind of preliminary assembly. I'm going to give myself some room, so I'm going to go up here to Image, and canvas size. And I'm going to change this to %. And I'm going to increase this to 100% relative to the current dimensions. And that gives me a little bit more to work with here, just to move stuff around. Because obviously you can see I need to move some things around. And so this image goes down over here, and this goes down here, and this one also goes down here. Okay, you can see it did a pretty good job. So I just need to get these 3 images aligned. Real quick, the way that I do this is I will go ahead and start getting this close. And then, but I do want to go in, and I'm going to raise that to the top so I can see it. I can move these layers around later. And then I'm going to set the opacity on that, I don't know, to about 60. And then I can move this and kind of see through. So I'm looking for some features. So this feature here, I'm going to work on getting that aligned. It's kind of hard to see, but so looking at the limb and looking at that feature to get those aligned, and that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to nudge it with my arrow key just a little bit, and then I'll put the opacity back and just trying to align that limb, because this image actually going to go to the background, and that's pretty good. So I'm going to move that back behind again. Doesn't matter where, just so it's at. And that's really helping provide some space and maybe a little bit of limb there, but I don't think we're actually seeing it. And then I'm going to do the same thing with these others. We have all of our panels lined up now. So if you want, this is a good time to work on this one outlier here of where the levels are a little too dark. And so I'm going to click on that thumbnail and hit Command L on Mac. I think it would be Windows L on Windows. And that brings up the levels screen here. And I just want to further normalize this to do a little bit better job. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to try and match that. We're looking for that seam to just sort of disappear there. So that's pretty good. These other ones could use it too. And you can certainly go through, do the same thing, Command L. There's one more trick here we need to do. So what we want before auto align layers is I want to hide everything, and I need to go through a process of cleanup. So this will take a bit. It's tedious. I'll speed through it, but what I'm going to do is I've deselected all but one, and now I'm going to choose the eraser tool and get an appropriate size, which this size brush is pretty good. And then we want to go along the edges of just the solar area, not the space area, because what we do is there's hard edges in here. And if we soften those up here with an eraser with a soft brush, that will help the alignment. So I'm just going to go through and starting at the solar area, and I'm going to erase these edges. Now I have 300 pixels of overlap. I have plenty of room. I can just stay close to the edge and just make sure not to get into whatever your panel overlap was from your mosaic capture. And do that to each one. This is a good place to show you the type of artifacts that are on the edges here. This is what we're getting rid of along here. Okay, now at this point, auto blend layers and the stack of images, not the panorama, and seamless tones and colors. We'll click OK. So anyway, that was problematic with that one panel. So I might need to go back, but I think if we look at the rest of this, we can see how good of a job it did. So I might need to go back a step here and modify the way that this layer is set up. Other than that, it's, we got a really nice blend. You can see I've got a dust mote. I tried really hard to get rid of that dust mote. I couldn't find it. So what I did with that is simply a quick clone stamp. All right, so that's pretty much how to put the mosaic together. I'll let you handle the processing side further from here on how you like to colorize and go through, the rest of, applying more sharpening or wavelets, taking it to other tools, whatever it is that you like to do. I just really wanted to just show you how to put this together. Obviously, I had one panel that needs more work. I'm not going to try and go through and fix it right now. What I would do is I would go back a step, so I'd undo and go back to before I had that blend all those together, and then I would look for what is causing the issue with that panel. I'm not sure what that is right now. It would take some time. So anyway, go back and forth on that until it's fixed, and just keep doing the blend until it gets it right. But overall, you could see how the blend worked, and it brought all that together, got rid of all the seams, stitches it together. I think it does a really good job. All right, so I hope that process workflow gives you something you can use, if not the entire thing, maybe there's some tidbits in there. And, obviously it is dependent on some applications that I use that you may not, but maybe you can adapt those to whatever it is that you use. And, there's no rules, and you just do what you want. So the idea is the approach overall. And then if you do have these tools, and obviously you can apply the way that I did it in the order that I did it for the tools that I just showed. So anyway, I just genuinely hope that was helpful for you. And certainly if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below or over on my Discord. And if this type of content helps you out, maybe consider becoming a channel member or picking up a piece of merch out of my store. There's links below, and supporting the channel in that way if you'd like. So anyway, thank you very much for stopping by. My name is Doug, and this is AstroAF.